Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. Joining your partners in crime, Greg Thompson, Aaron Quinn. Aaron, I heard there was some failed crimes around Buffalo today.
Yeah, a parent not kidnapping happened. It was supposed to be a kidnapping, and then some kid was just lying about it because that's funny to lie about crimes.
Yeah, just a
Oh well,
disaster.
yeah, not fun stuff, man. But you know what? It's there's not a lot going on this time of year for your Bills fan. So I'm scrolling around Twitter anyway, and there's really nothing going on. I'm not a big Sabres fan. I know there's something going on with the Sabres tonight. I'll probably be a big Sabres fan once the bandwagon's worth jumping on, but I'm not there yet. So there's nothing for us football fans to consume. So I'll jump all over a news story that's breaking news.
I am 1000% comfortable saying I am only and exclusively a Sabres bandwagon fan. I was super pumped about the 7th,
November.
8th, 9th, and 10th game in a row that they won.
Yep.
And I was even monitoring that, what could have been the 11th or 12th. And then I can't really tell you a whole lot that happened after that in the season. But like in that 3 or 4 game stretch of 10 in a row, I was all in.
I watched the final like 4 of that streak and pretended to be a fan. I was ready to jump on the bandwagon. Luckily for my life and time, I didn't have to.
Yeah, but I'm ready. The next time the things go super, super well, I will be all about it, and I'll learn more about hockey at the time.
Yeah, maybe we'll start a Sabres podcast.
Yeah. Us stumbling through how hockey works and what the rules are and what's supposed to happen would be very entertaining. We would embarrass ourselves 10 times over.
More than we do here?
A little more, slightly more. Speaking of which, come on over and you can be like Aaron and I and try to educate yourselves with actual smart people like Eric Turner and others that do really good, intelligent work. And you can see the awesome beat writing from Rob Quinn, college breakdowns from Russell and Christian, awesome write-ups from Fernando. Just a great team over at cover1.net. Our app is getting some updates. You got a lot of good things going on. Both the Buffalo podcast you're listening to now and the Cover One Draft podcast. Just a lot of great things coming on. We can't advise you enough to jump on with the premium subscription. And I know where Aaron and I met was one area that you want to tell them a little bit about the premium Slack channel?
Yeah, it's a site called match.com. Oh, wait.
The other one.
Yeah, no, okay. The Slack channel, right. No, I love it. Premium members have a spot. If you don't know about Slack, it's its own. A lot of businesses use it for internal chat. It's a chat room that is not on a social media network, so we can allow who gets in there. So it's all the premium members have access to that. So if you haven't signed up for a premium membership yet, do that. The Slack channel in itself is worth it. And just the discussions that go on there are fantastic. There's a lot of meat discussions going on today. So it's become a community in itself of just people that are like-minded Bills fans. And most of it, 98% of it is Bills talk, diving deep in, asking Eric questions. Eric will hit us with his tidbits while he's in the middle of finding film. He'll kind of get, hey guys, look at this, and give us a little crumb. And then we eat it up like the little rodent peasants we are. And discuss amongst ourselves. So it's a fantastic community. Some really good, engaging conversations, guys that make you really think about your view on the team. And it just makes you a better Bills fan. And that is what we are all about at Cover One, is trying to, all of us, make ourselves better Bills fans. And I think the Slack channel, being a member in that community, it's really helped me even in the Twitter world in trying to work on how I describe what I'm thinking in a social media platform and hone in on my comments and arguments and maybe change my opinion on some things that I didn't quite see the way I did before. So it's enlightened me as a Bills fan. And for that, it's been totally worth it.
Yeah, I'll give a quick example. So today we found a post online. Some folks were talking about the rate of fourth quarter conversions or going forward on fourth down from coaches over the last 3 years. And it showed that we were a little bit surprised. Sean McDermott was in the top 10 for the scenarios where it made sense based on win percentage and the game within risk and, you know, a certain time of the game and under 4th and 5, maybe something like that. So I had some criteria to it, and we were a little surprised, but it was over 3 years, and we posted it, and we're kind of talking a little bit. Well, one of our guys jumped in there and ran it for just last year to see that he was at McDermott was actually even higher, and that after Bean came in, I know they really built up further the analytics department and actually having dedicated analytics teams that, you know, I know we talk a lot about the kind of old school, grind it out, control the line of scrimmage kind of game, and that's always what they're going to talk about. But that doesn't mean that they're not educating themselves on the right times to be aggressive, the right times to push those things. And that all came from the Slack channel today, and just kind of having people jump in and research things and then bring it back to the channel and kind of talk through it, and having a community like that wants to share those things and wants to talk as a group. It's really exciting to be able to kind of see those things come around.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's nice. Like, I keep it open and it gives me a little notification. So while I'm working on something, I can't always be on Twitter, but between the amount of people that are in the Slack channel and the active community that is, I don't really miss anything because I get those notifications. And when I see something like, oh, hey, check this out, I'll pop over to Slack. And maybe the people that pay me don't love that, but I love that, even though it distracts me from my work. So I definitely recommend it. And there's also a Slack mobile app. So you don't have to be on your desktop. It can come to your phone. So I'm on Slack all day. Greg's on Slack all day. Our bosses hate it, but it's fun and you're going to love it.
Before we jump in, we're going to continue on with our positional preview this week, getting into the hog mollies. But beforehand, I know there's a topic that always gets Aaron and I kind of anxious as we get in here. And I think we ended mini camp and the mandatory OTA portions on a pretty high note. I know we had a really rough start with some of the injuries, but things didn't get too much worse. They confirmed that all of the injuries besides Tyler Croft were relatively minor, and there wasn't any expectation that anyone besides Croft would be limited in training camp. Everyone was supposed to be back and ready to go full go. But now we go into the dark window, and this dark window is the scary time of the year where, whether it's worrying about a Zay Jones type incident, or sadly what happened with Cyrus Kwanjo, players drag racing, getting that alert.
The whole shady thing last year.
The entire shady thing last year. This is that window where we really want there to be no news, which is hard for people like Aaron and I who have a job to come on here and talk about news. But we really want it to be quiet. So what are your thoughts on kind of the anxiety of this weird 6-week window?
I hate it. And the thing that I also hate the most is we live in this time of social media instant, where people have video all the time. People are taking video of themselves. I'm not going to say any specifics, but I've seen it on Instagram, players, Bills, and other teams, of things where if I was a league official or a GM, it would be something that would lead me to say, hey, maybe we send a random piss test to this guy's house when it's that time of year. That stuff's happening, and it's such a weird time now in social media, and just phones around at all times, and all this stuff. It's stuff the guys in the 90s didn't have to worry about. And that's a conversation I have all the time on Twitter when somebody gets suspended for marijuana or something in public, and they're like, oh, we don't need that kind of guy. And it's like, well, dude, the people that were playing football before these guys all weren't choir boys either. There just was cell phones on every corner. So that terrifies me, man, when I log on. Or I see some update to the Bleacher Report app coming through and it's a Bills update. Like, it better just be that the Bills are playing a training camp against the Like, I want boring, the Bills are doing a wedding at halftime. That's the stuff that I want to see this time of year. Just the total boring PR marketing stuff that they're pushing out. I don't want to hear anything about anybody on the team, except for some videos maybe on Instagram of the guys working out on their own.
Yeah, I love those, and I'm excited. I loved hearing that Josh wanted, he was comfortable flying guys in or flying two guys to continue working out over the period here. I think especially him and Cole Beasley are going to get together because they didn't get a lot of live reps, so it sounded like that was going to be a priority, which I love the idea of, and I love hearing that Cole is bothering the crap out of Josh and constantly hitting him up with ideas and wanting to talk and running through video clips and things like that. That it's great to hear that kind of camaraderie. I know one of the videos that scared the crap out of me right after the draft. Ed Oliver went out with Jordan Phillips, and they were working on Jordan Phillips' dogs who were getting trained, and he had the police suit on, like the huge padded canvas suit where the attack dogs can come, or not attack dogs, but the dogs can be trained on how to attack if needed. And I'm like, no, we just drafted him 9th. I don't want him getting attacked by dogs. That's not necessary. So yeah, I'm just petrified at this time of year. I hate having to have that anxiety of God. I just don't want to hear anything. And sadly, I don't think we've had a clean year for 5, 6, 7 years now of not having some kind of news pop up.
I'm sure if we look around the league, I don't get to follow all 32 teams in the same way. Like I definitely pay attention to the NFL, but I'm sure the majority of teams have something this time of year, and hopefully they can steer clear. And you know what I like to see too, outside of like guys getting together and working and stuff like that, is these guys enjoying themselves, is actually taking this time, because I know fans get on these guys about, oh, I want to see them training and getting together and working, but these guys work all year. This isn't the way football was back in the day, where when they got to training camp, they came to training camp to get back into football shape. These guys arrive to training camp in peak physical condition because they are working all year. You see it with like Jordan Poyer, for instance. You'll see him having lavish vacations like he should, a young millionaire guy with a beautiful wife. He should be enjoying the Caribbean and things like that, but you'll also see him working his butt off while he's there and stuff like that. So these guys are working all year long. I think it's fantastic that they get to enjoy the fruits of their labor for this short window. Really, it's not a long window that they're not working on their craft. So I hope that they're all enjoying it and taking it all in, because man, you're a hardworking guy in a big corporation, and sometimes it's good to clear away from that and before you come back into it full swing and get your mind right and ramp up for the season.
No, sometimes honestly, it's just to decompress. Like sometimes you can get into such a rut of the same routine of things. And I know obviously mine's
too much playbook.
Yeah, but way different than their world. Now, I'm not trying to compare myself to what they're doing, but just that idea of when you're in a 24/7 role that you can get phone calls at any time and involved in anything, it's easy to just let that dominate your life. And sometimes it is nice to step away. We just hope that the guys are able to do it productively and in a healthy, functional way. I hope they do step away for a minute, let their bodies decompress, let their bodies rest up, stay fit, do what you need to do, but then get ready to hit it full go, and be ready for that. And I just pray that we have a really boring stretch between here and training camp.
Yes, absolutely. And it's the worst of it. So bear with us here, guys.
So speaking of which, a new segment that we're going to be trying to test out here over the next little while. We opened up a hashtag called #AskCover1. So I know that Eric actually took that and ran with it and did an awesome video breakdown on a few of them. We're going to work on answering a couple of those questions here during the show, and we're going to do one now, and then we'll do another set here at the end of the show. But one of our friends online, Dean Kindig, that many of you guys see for TC Bills or Astro Bills, working on some of the draft tech stuff, sent us over a question. I'll kick it to you, Aaron, and what you think. He was talking about how he ranked the slot receiver depth, and he had it as Cole Beasley, Nick Easley, Isaiah McKenzie, David Sills. And now I know he's missing a name or two that I would view in there. But what were your thoughts on how you would view how you think the team will rank the slot receiver as a standalone position, or how you would see the depth being managed there of who you think are going to get snaps out of the slot?
Well, I really think outside of Cole Beasley, when he's being in that inside traditional slot role, I think receiving positions in this team are going to be almost like the NBA is, where it's going to be a little bit positionless. And that's a good thing. I think they're going to be able to kind of line guys up and not get, this guy's always here and this guy's always here, and that the defense can say, oh, we're just going to follow him. You're going to have to go find these receivers if you're going to try to follow a guy, because I think they're going to be able to move these guys around a little bit. But if we're just talking in the straight fantasy football type, Madden, roster prediction, who's going to be that third slot wide receiver kind of guy, I think Beasley's definitely the guy. I think Sills is over Easley and McKenzie, just as far as possibility to even make the team if we're talking about a depth chart. I don't really see Easley and McKenzie as guys that are going to make this team, and if they are, I mean, I can see easily getting on the practice squad. I think McKenzie's on his way out. I just don't even see a role for him now that they have John Brown, Foster's increased role. So I don't see him there, but I think Zay Jones is a name that didn't get mentioned in the slot role. He's done it. For me. Yeah, he's done it. He doesn't have that traditional Beasley, but he is more athletic than I think people give him credit for. And I said this in the Slack channel. People are down on Zay, man. I think with all the tools they added, that's great. But I still think Zay Jones is the most well-rounded receiver in that room. And maybe he doesn't do any of the things that these other guys do that at the level that they do it at, but none of the other guys do all the things that he does.
Yeah, I think he's by far the most well-rounded of the group. He's not as fast or as twitchy as some of those guys. I don't think anybody has the separation skills that Cole Beasley has. So I think what you were saying earlier was could easily ease himself onto the practice squad.
Yeah.
I agree. I don't realistically think they have a shot to make it. I've seen some people I respect project Isaiah McKenzie to make the roster, which is a little surprising, and a few that I was shocked to project Ray McLeod making it. So one, I would
put Ray in the slot. Sure.
I would actually have Ray McLeod on here ahead of Easley or David Sills, there with Isaiah McKenzie. But I actually think the Zay Jones is equal with Cole Beasley, and that both of them are going to see the majority of their snaps in the slot. Even though I think Zay is going to play a lot more outside of the slot than Cole does. I think Zay is going to see the most variety of any of the receivers. What you were talking about, kind of that positionless role, I think he's the most transferable, where I think Brown and Foster, the vast majority, are going to be on the outside unless they have a set where I'd love to see what a defense does if we have both of them on the same side of the center, and one in the slot, one in the outside, running some crazy routes. Whereas Cole, I think short of motion and really getting a matchup that they like, most games he's going to be in the slot. I think Zay is going to change from game to game. We're going to have games where he's, we're going 4 wide a lot and he's in the slot all the time. Other ones where he's out wide all the time. I think he is going to play a lot of snaps and be out there, but he's probably our most versatile guy. So I would list him still as having probably the second most slot snaps on the team behind Cole Beasley, but still having a lot of versatility around there.
And the nice thing about Zay too is he gives you that flexibility where, say he's lined up in the slot, he's a good blocker too. So he adds a blocker on the field. And if they're trying to establish the run, that's something that you have to account for, because he can beat you as a wide receiver, but he can come in and lay a hat on you in the run game. So that versatility matters to the coaches. So I know people love the speed. They fall in love with the speed of John Brown, Robert Foster, and then the separation of Beasley. But I think Zay is not getting the credit that he deserves online for what type of role he's going to have in this offense, just because of the amount of things he can do really well.
Okay, so thank you to Dean. We appreciate that question coming in. You're going to see more of those coming up here, just trying to interact and make sure we're talking about the content you guys want to see. We'll hit another one of those here at the end of the show. But now we're going to jump right into our continued positional previews and getting into the offensive line. So obviously we talked a little bit before. Aaron put up an awesome graphic that got a lot of interaction online, kind of talking about different combinations, but that was before the OTAs and the mini camps. Now we've seen a little bit more where we've seen that it seems like Cody Ford's first crack at it is going to definitively be at right tackle. We saw a little bit where Quentin Spain, they were very comfortable with him on the right side. We assumed it was just going to be the left. But the left side, almost every single day, was Deion Dawkins at left tackle and Spencer Long at left guard. And we know that Mitch Morris is pretty much the only rock solid definite, which is him at center. So let's kind of talk through a little bit about maybe what you saw that changed, anything in your opinion, from before the mini camps to now, before we get into maybe projecting anything there. Did you learn anything new, or did it change any of your assumptions or predictions on the line coming in?
For me, it was hard because I wanted to find a tidbit, I think, in minicamp, but of all the units that really got hit the worst with these minor bumps and bruises and injuries, obviously you had Morris out for a while, and so that slid some guys around. They tried Feliciano, I think, at center. They tried some different things at center. Inseki, I think, missed some time. So then they tried some different stuff there. So I think their hand was a little bit forced in how they may have wanted to do things, what they were able to do. It was giving us a look of what they're really thinking and how they want to split these reps come summer. I do think that they want to try Ford out at right tackle. It's what they said. And I think that they have been pretty consistent in what they say in the press conferences. They're not just coach speak. They're not just trying to throw fluff out there. I think they are pretty consistent in telling the truth. But I think really once we get into these dog days at camp, I think Inseki's going to be the guy. I think it's going to be hard for him to get beat out. And I think it's going to come down to, even though Nseki's going to be the guy, I think it's going to be hard to keep Cody Ford off the field. And coaches are going to say, we've got to find a way to get this guy in the field and let's try him there. I think he's going to get some reps on the inside this summer. So I just think that OTAs isn't a big enough window, and you had guys hurt. So I wasn't really able to pull anything that I can take into training camp and say, man, I really think that this is going to be the line.
Well, and on top of that, they do the least in these OTAs and mini camps as it is. So
yeah.
The only thing you could take away was the alignment in trying to glean from that what the coaches are thinking.
Right.
You can't get anything from performance, or and not that you can a lot from the skill guys, but hey, Duke Williams didn't really stand out, had a fair amount of blocks or drops. Hey, Dawson Knox looked pretty good and was actually more impressive than what we expected. At least there you can take a little bit away from it, even if it's with a huge grain of salt. With offensive line, you can take nothing because there's no physicality whatsoever. So it's only, hey, this guy lined up there. So I guess the best problem is it's a problem, but it's great in that it's awesome. We're going to have a really good player not start. So whether that's Ty Nsekhe, Cody Ford, Quentin Spain, or Spencer Long, those are 4 really good linemen who weren't on our team last year, and one of them's not going to start. I feel 95% that Deion Dawkins is going to start the year at left tackle.
Yeah.
He didn't play anywhere else, any of the other practices, at least the ones that were open. So I guess it's possible they're trying to cushion his ego, and he's only taking those reps in days where the media is not there. We'll find that out pretty quickly, maybe a week into training camp, but I doubt that. So it seems like Morse is rocks out at center, and that I think Dawkins seems pretty locked in as left tackle for at least week 1. And then it's pretty much those other 4 guys fighting for those 3 spots. And, sure, maybe Jeremiah Searles will get some nominal run. Wyatt Teller will get a rep or 2. Hell, Vlad Dukas got a rep or 2. But really, it's going to be, does Cody Ford play tackle or guard? Can Nseki's veteran presence beat out his physical potential? And if so, does that bump him into guard, or do they keep him developing at right tackle? And then if they bump him in, does Quentin Spain go back to left guard, and is it one of Long or Spain? But I have a feeling those are pretty much the 2 battles. It's Nsekhe versus Ford, and then if Ford bumps in, it's Spain versus Long. But that seems kind of how it's shaken out in the early sites of it. Do you think that's pretty close to how the battles will work out?
Yeah, and I think that after that, it's a significant drop off in talent too. And so I think but that's enough battles where that makes this a really interesting position group going into camp, where those maybe 2 fluctuating positions have enough interest where you're really going to be watching these guys in the preseason games to see how they're performing. I do think ultimately what I think is not only best and what I think the coaches are going to end up doing is going with a veteran group across the front and allowing Cody Ford to take a half a year or a full year, depending on how the things play out, to really develop into the guy that they expect him to be. But I think the best thing for Josh Allen in 2019 is to have established guys that have played in the league, that know how to communicate and play at this level, even if they may not be as physically capable as Cody Ford potentially is, that there's more to offensive line than physically capable. And we've seen that with a number of guys. I mean, Eric Wood wasn't always the most physically capable center, but mentally and that veteran experience. I was on record on this show for saying that I didn't think losing Eric would be that significant because of his physical lack of ability towards the end of his career. But we saw that losing him actually was huge because of his veteran experience and that leadership. So I want to see 2019, this line, be the veterans, and that's Nsekhe, Long, Morse, Spain, and Deion Dawkins. And I would be really excited to roll into the year with that, and then let Ford develop and know that he's a really anchor piece moving forward into the future.
Yeah, that's right now where my preference would be, and I can't tell how much of that is I want to get value from the $7 million we're giving Ty Nsekhe, and how much of that is, I think that maybe there's logic to if there's any downside with Cody Ford, some of it was technique and footwork and getting into real NFL shape. And you saw some of that this offseason from Deion Dawkins that, maybe there is a benefit of letting him kind of learn, even if he's kind of an overqualified backup. And I know we've joked about some of the drop off, but I actually think that there's two guys there that are significantly better than last year's backups. And that's
Sure.
Adrian Waddle and John Feliciano, where last year when things went wrong, we had games where we started or played significant snaps from Connor McDermott and Ike Botker, and now having a guy like Feliciano, versatile at all three interior spots, Lader and Waddle, who can play both tackle spots, having that kind of versatility there and available is a really nice luxury from what we had before, that we could have those as our seventh and eighth linemen and not really have to worry about an injury being crippling to send us backwards. And then maybe they can ease in with some of those things as a sixth lineman, running jumbo sets, getting Cody Ford some snaps. And then maybe it's kind of like a Milano idea that week 10 or 11, we see that, hey, Ford's really picking it up and his physical potential is just too much to deny. And we have to give him a shot to get on the field. And then that's a great problem to have if they feel like that's something they can look towards. So I just love the fact that that's the kind of debate we're having rather than holding our nose and figuring out, gosh, who's the least terrible of the options we have here. It's a luxury we haven't had in quite a while.
Yeah, I have a tough time saying Feliciano and luxury in the same sentence. I get what you're saying though, like as the seventh or eighth guy, yes. I don't know that he's a lot better than Vlad Dukas as far as a player. I haven't seen it yet. I want to see it. They obviously saw something in him with the amount of money they brought him in to be in this position, and they said he's competing for a starting job. So they see something in him I haven't seen yet. So hopefully that you're right and that he is a luxury. I think another scenario where Ford gets on the field is a Deion Dawkins struggle. He did struggle a little bit in year 2. I think they are absolutely giving him every opportunity to be the franchise left tackle. I think they're going to do that all through the summer, and that's going to trickle into the season. He's really out of excuses though. He had, he came out and said he didn't play as good as he should have. He didn't take I don't know exact his words were, but he came out and took blame for his play this last year. And I think a lot of fans blamed the offensive line as a whole and Juan Castillo as a whole for Deion Dawkins' struggles. We're going to see this year whether or not any of those things were true. He's going to be playing with a veteran presence next to him at some point. He's going to have a veteran center there. The unit as a whole is going to be better. It won't be on him as much. I still think there's a lot of potential for Deion Dawkins, but he has not made it yet in this league. So I think there's a chance that halfway through the season, he's still where he was a year ago. And then they really have to start to have a conversation of, what do we do here? This guy might not be the franchise left tackle that we want him to be, because we can slide Nseki over there and try Ford out.
That's exactly how it would go, is that they see that he's struggling. Nseki can kick over there very quickly. Matter of fact, a lot of people we talked to, his best film was at left tackle. So I actually think that would be the most likely move, is that they would kick Nseki over, let Ford start at right tackle. And honestly, right now, long term, obviously Deion has much more potential than Ty Nseki. But in 2019, I don't know that there's a huge difference between Deion Dawkins and Ty Nseki at left tackle. I'd love to be wrong and that Dawkins is ready to take a material step forward. But I mean, from everything I've seen, I don't know that there's a material difference between Ty Nseki and Deion Dawkins starting at left tackle. And maybe if that's a draw, maybe that's where we're better with Cody Ford starting at right tackle. So it's an interesting problem to have. The hard part is I know some fans will chime in and say, oh, then trade Deion Dawkins. Well, if teams see that he's not good enough to start for you and you're benching him, you pretty much also milk all the trade value out of it. So it's one of those things where either he's going to work out and it's going to be great for us, or he's not, and we'll have to deal with that. But obviously right now, it seems like he took the offseason very seriously. There was a ton of social media posts about his fitness and bike riding, and he's in the best shape of his life. And I could see in pictures he is noticeably more fit than he was the first 2 years, where he did not look like a professional athlete when you saw his body. And certainly still looked very much like the chubby O-lineman that you would see in some areas, not the Tyron Smith O-lineman that you see for some teams. But we need to see that translate on the field. We need to see that translate in technique.
I've seen it before where social media gets excited. I got excited last year the way John Miller looked when he was training with Shady McCoy.
Oh,
He looked like a
that
thick
made me
brick
sad thinking
wall
about. Yeah, he was throwing dudes out the club.
all over the place. 2 years ago, I remember people reporting live from training camp how great shape Shaq Lawson was. Shaq's gonna have a huge breakout year. This guy looks the part. Looking the part's part of it. You definitely have to do that and get out there. And it sounds like maybe I'm coming down hard on Deion Dawkins, and I'm not. There's definitely potential there. There's tons of good tape. There's some bad stuff though, and I don't know that he's the guy to be a franchise left tackle. And this is the year to figure that out for him. So he's on the hot seat probably more than anybody in the offense, in my opinion, to really prove it. They've put good players around him. That's not an excuse anymore. They brought in supposed good offensive line coach, so that's not an excuse anymore. He's had this whole offseason to get in the shape that he said he wasn't in. Now it's time to come out and prove. And I think he's got I think he's got the whole summer to do it and probably a good handful of games, but he's really going to have to take, like you said, a big step forward, in my opinion, to know that after 2019, we're set at this position, because it's a fine, delicate balance right now at this point in the rebuild that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott have to do. And it's a conversation we have in the Slack channel a lot of, yes, you do want to build with potential to the future, but Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane really need to start producing results in the next year and a half, because if they don't start producing these results, they're not going to be here for that potential future. So yeah, maybe if he struggles this year, but he still shows some potential, he still has that ability to be the left tackle you want him to be, but they have to win in 2020, or they're on the hot seat and they might not be here. So they're going to have to start making some of these tough decisions of balancing the future with winning now. And that is all coming to a head here. And I think in the next year and a half, and he might be one of those guys that is that first decision they have to make.
Absolutely. And I think we have a lot of good guys going in the chat right now. Khalid and Kreese and Wayne's in there. We got Nick Lowe. Everybody's talking about the same kind of thing, in that it's what we talked about. You try to kind of dial me back sometimes. I get a little excited about the depth and who they added. And that it was really, really bad last year.
So bad.
But at least they're showing that they took it seriously. Now, it doesn't mean everybody they added is going to be great, and I probably let myself get a little too excited that they're all going to work out. But they went and signed 6 unrestricted free agents and drafted a guy 38th overall. It's hard to do more than that from an investment standpoint. That's, they showed everything that they had. We did keep the 2 reasonably talented guys in Deion Dawkins and Wyatt Teller, but then they went out and got it. We had kind of braced everybody all leading up to free agency that, hey, this is going to be a 2-year rebuild. You can't add 4 new starters on the offensive line all at once. What if we whiff on the top 2 centers? Brace yourselves. It might not be that fast of a turnaround. And holy crap, they added 6 guys and drafted a guy 38th and the highest paid center in the league. And, that's all you can ask for, is that they invested in the position and gave a new offensive line coach and Bobby Johnson 2 new assistants that are along with him to kind of help rebuild that. They added everything you could possibly ask for from an investment standpoint. Now we just need to hope that they evaluated well and added the right people. But you can't ask for anything more than, restocking to that degree.
Yeah, and some of the success of the offensive line is going to come in the continuity. And I know fans don't always love hearing that word, but it's really, we want to get this established as quick as you can in the summer and start to get that continuity and that communication across the line, because I think this position is just like every other one that we've talked about so far, where I keep coming back to. They went from one of the worst units in football a year ago to a very average unit overall. And when they first started signing all these guys, I saw some people taking to Twitter saying this is going to be a top 5 offensive line in the league. That's crazy to me. I don't think that this is, when I look at this line, I see, wow, this is one of the best units in football. But I do see, and we talked about it, I think last week, I think they went from in the 30s to maybe below average, right around average, which is a significant jump. Really all they need is the difference to win 3 to 4 more games a year. So I'm excited about the jump of the guys that they brought in. So I don't know that fans should expect we're going to come out and dominate and Josh Allen is going to have all this free time in the pocket just because of the names they brought in. But I do think that you're going to, week 1, see a substantial difference from the poor play that we saw a year ago.
Yeah, and I always joke, I'm I like old comedy, but the bit from Eddie Murphy, when the starving guy comes in, is like, "Oh, that cracker was so good. Was that a Ritz?"
That's us.
When you haven't had anything in so long, it's what you see looks like it's amazing, even though really we're going from the worst offensive line of the entire league to now, hey, look, we're average. But average would be great. I'll
Yeah.
take average. Average would be lovely. And I know that a lot of guys were in here, and we had a couple questions come in. John Roberts had asked as well about maybe making a statement early on, and Matthew Ronkowski was asking about when we're going to see some of those things happen. I think that there's going to be a fine balance between the competition that we talked about and the continuity you just touched on. And how long do you think they can wait before they make that call and start letting whoever they decide those top 5 guys are start to gel together? Even if it's maybe not a definitive clear winner per se, they just have to make a gut call. How long do you think they can afford to wait to make that call to let those top 5 guys gel?
That's going to be a tough one. I mean, I think the practices in Carolina are going to help a little bit this year because that stuff gets a little ramped up more than the practices you have against each other. But training camp nowadays, with the rules in the CBA, it's very hard, I think, to really judge your team from a physical standpoint. And the games aren't much, right? The preseason games aren't always the best indicator, too. I think we've talked about it a few times on the show of the how much McDermott values veterans on this team. So I think you're going to see those guys, the veterans, roll out as the starters, as the guys getting the most chance. I think you'll see Ford kind of get what the Josh Allen treatment last year, where he comes in for some reps and they start to kind of increase that workload and those reps for him. But I think they try to give the veterans every chance to lose their jobs that they can. And I don't know, man, maybe the second game, you start to see some kind of switching up if a guy's not really pulling it after the first game or something. But I think that they try as hard as they can to allow the veterans to lose their jobs. They talk about everybody's got to come in and earn it, and that it's an equal playing field. I don't know that's entirely equal. I think the veterans do have some seniority, and that is something that matters to this coaching staff, and they're going to allow those guys the opportunity to lose the jobs before they get handed to a younger guy.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that they showed that, and even I know it might on the show that when both of us had the chance to go on with Joe Marino, he talked about the even how silly it looked last year when they were giving Ramon Humber equal reps versus
Right.
Matt Milano. That was one where we knew what the outcome was going to be, let alone ones where it's a genuine competition. They are going to default, at least initially, to those veteran guys. So, we should expect to probably see Spencer Long and Quentin Spain get every chance over Wyatt Teller. I know we have some guys. I'm not personally a huge Teller supporter, but there are plenty of guys who are and want to see him get a chance because he did show some glimpses of potential going into his 4 or 5 games that he
Do we
got
have
to start
any?
at the end.
Do we have any Garrett McGinn fanboys yet for training camp?
Just give it a minute. Give it a minute. It's some Brandon Riley conversions coming over,
Right.
looking for somebody new to cling on to.
That's right.
Hell, they could take him over Tyree Jackson. I'm just not
Sure.
ready for those guys. But yeah, it's that kind of thing that I think we're going to see that kind of development, and I think that you're right. That's right where I'd like to see it too. I'd love to see them walk into those 2 joint practices with Carolina. I think it's August 13th and 14th, with their idea of the starting 5, because that lets them practice that whole week. That lets them go into the 3rd preseason game where they play, the full whole first half. They're going at halftime, kind of go through the reps there, come back out for one more drive in the 3rd quarter. Then they get 2 more weeks of practice because they're obviously not going to play in the 4th preseason game. But they get 2 whole weeks of practice after that. So you're talking about 3 whole weeks of reps in practice, an entire preseason half to work with leading into that first game. So that's about the gut call for me is, short of maybe using those live joint practices with Carolina on the 13th and 14th, leading into week 3 of the preseason as a final tiebreaker. For sure, walking out of those practices, you have to have it going into the game. But ideally, walking into the game, we need to have that as the call there at that point, even if they're not sure, even if it's not definitive and they haven't said, Quentin Spain has blown Spencer Long out of the water, even if it's 51-49, just out of respect for Josh and out of respect for Dable and out of respect for the communication of the five guys across the board getting a chance to work together. You got to, fish or cut bait. You got to be able to make that call and let them move forward at that point.
Yeah, because it really is, out of maybe all the position groups in football, the communication and who's playing together matters the most, in my opinion. And when you start really tinkering with things, or even injuries really cause a lot of problems, and you're only as good as the weakest link on the offensive line. So all that stuff matters. Something interesting that I kind of want to talk to you about, we haven't talked about this at all. I think it was Chris Trapasso from CBS Sports on his Twitter today. Somebody was asking him about Tyne Secchi. So a guy that we haven't really touched on and is really interesting to me, and I don't know if I'm sleeping on him or if I'm right in line with him, is Ladrian Waddle. Comes over from the Patriots. I think he's a career backup swing tackle. Nothing more. Maybe not even a guy that makes this roster, depending how the numbers shake out for him. But he does provide some of that depth and versatility that you're talking about, a luxury big man on this team. Say Ford comes out this training camp really dominating, establishes himself that, hey, this guy can start in this league right away. You have Waddle there that can be the swing tackle and play either position in a bind. With the news on Trent Williams, this was a question that was posed to Trapasso. Could the Bills trade Secchi back to Washington and get any value out of a guy like that?
I will say,
I didn't think of it until I saw that question.
It's crazy. Absolutely a crazy Madden topic, but I will say, when they signed Secchi, they didn't think they were going to get Cody Ford to fall to the second round. They were trying to trade for Cody Ford from pick 20 on, because they had him as a top 15 graded player. So it's not insane, but it certainly would be weird to see that kind of move. I would say it's our favorite chance. It's a non-zero chance. I can't say that there's absolutely no chance that could happen, because obviously you're talking about a well-respected, well-liked player that Washington had a good experience with and couldn't afford to pay. Not that they didn't want to. They already had two well-paid tackles. They couldn't afford to pay him to stay. So I'd have to take a look. I don't know that Washington's an awesome cap space, but I think it would only be about $5 million going over. So I'm sure they'd be relatively okay. So yeah, that's probably that makes a lot more sense in Madden than probably in real life. Sure. But and that's not zero.
It doesn't have to be Washington per se, but that got brought up because of the connection that he's played there. He has had experience, and obviously the Trent Williams thing came up after all these moves were made. I feel like perhaps if they knew the Trent Williams stuff a little bit better before they allowed him to leave, they wouldn't have allowed him to leave. 100%. So maybe you try to get him back, and that could be a market where you get a 4th round pick in exchange for a guy that is going to kind of rotate on your bench. I know you like picks, and I know Bean likes picks. So I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just thought that was an interesting exercise mentally for me to say, that's not really something I thought of. But to your point, they did put themselves in a luxury position where Ford is the guy that they drafted him to be right away, which I'm not sure that he is. If he is that guy, I feel fine that Ladrian Waddle could be a guy that comes in once in a while or a few games in the year. Obviously, I would like Secchi better, but Waddle can be a backup swing tackle in this league, and he's proven it, and that's okay. So it does give them that luxury where if a team like Washington or somebody called and said, hey man, we need Secchi, and we'll give a 3rd or 4th rounder, probably not a 3rd, we'll give a 4th or 5th rounder for this guy. I think you really have to consider that call.
Oh, absolutely. It probably would need to be a reasonable value like that, and a 4th might be high, but it would have to be a 5th at the very lowest. And it would be that, hey, we just are in a much better position than what we thought. And then all of a sudden you're realizing that, hey, we're actually probably fine with Cody Ford starting, Ladrian Waddle as a swing tackle, keeping Teller as the eighth lineman instead of the ninth lineman. Maybe if somebody like Connor McDermott or I take that back, probably Jeremiah Searles, if they think that Searles is probably the ninth guy because he can play all 5 spots across the line, that's not crazy. I would be very surprised, especially how about this? It would also coincide with them feeling really good about the first week or two from Deion Dawkins.
Yes,
and that they can afford to do. So I would say that's probably more indicative of it and then also a desperate team like Washington or another team who thinks they're, another, high level playoffs, Kansas City, Chargers, Rams, Saints lose their left tackle and are desperate that, I could see Bean pouncing on a spot like that, but I'd say it's very unlikely, but it's not absolutely crazy.
Yeah, no, it's unlikely, but Waddle is a guy that's on this line seems to be a bit of a conundrum to me as to where he fits in outside of extra swing tackle. He's not super versatile. He can play both tackle positions, but so can Nsekhe if Ford is starting. And I don't know if Ford's not starting, is Ford developing so much that if Nsekhe goes down or Dawkins goes down, is Waddle the guy coming in ahead of Ford? Is Ford that far behind in the depth chart going into the year? Waddle's an interesting guy to me and where the team sees him. And that's going to be something that going into camp is what I'm going to be looking at is where does the team see this guy?
Yeah, it's the same idea as with Nsekhe. They didn't expect to get Cody Ford when they signed later in Waddle. Waddle, I'm 100% sure that when they signed it, they had it as Deion Dawkins left tackle, Ty Nsekhe right tackle, later in Waddle, versatile veteran swing tackle. We're good. We got our 3 tackles. Let's roll. And then, holy crap. Cody Ford fell in our lap, and we can't turn down a top 15 talent in the second round. So hey, look, we got this now. So
thanks, Houston.
No, God, that's so weird. It's so weird. I still lean towards what you said earlier, that I think that there's still some development. I think there's some reason that Cody Ford fell with some tackle hungry teams there, that he is more mauling potential than maybe absolute NFL ready day one. But his physical potential is off the charts. And his attitude and finishing mentality and really mean streak is awesome. So I actually am completely fine with the luxury of a grizzly bear in a football jersey on the sideline every week. And that, God forbid injuries happen in the NFL, that, hey, look, we don't lose an inch when we have somebody go out there, because we can have somebody of his caliber come in. So I'm leaning that way. I don't know that I want to see Cody Ford have to play day one, but if he does, that's awesome, because that means he was so undeniably talented that they had to get him on the field. And then we just have a really good backup somewhere where Quentin Spain, Spencer Long, or Ty Nsekhe are on the bench, and that's awesome.
So it sounds to me like, even though they are probably across the board mediocre, this might be, if you were to say the Bills had an embarrassment of riches at a position, that it might be the offensive line.
It is. It's so funny that we now, and again, you're right to kind of dial me back in some of those areas, because John Feliciano not only is pretty close to Vlad, he is Vlad Ducasse. In the sense that Vlad Ducasse only got signed because he was the available veteran who knew Bobby Johnson's system. What do you think John Feliciano and Adrian Waddle are? They are the available, reasonably priced veteran free agents who knew Bobby Johnson's system. Feliciano played with Bobby Johnson in Oakland. Adrian Waddle played with Bobby Johnson in Detroit. They both were available for a reasonably priced veteran price tag, and they came aboard because they can help teach everybody else the system. They can step in day one knowing the scheme and the approach and the technique, and that's why they're here. So they not only are pretty close to Vlad Ducasse, they are. Now, do I want to argue that they're both 105, 110% of Ducasse's talent? Yes, my heart wants to argue that, but I don't really know that. Are they actually more talented than him? I don't know. Vlad Ducasse became a popular punching bag, but he actually graded out pretty decent in some games and has kicked around the NFL for that long for a reason. Feliciano and Waddle are the same. They've kicked around the NFL and stayed on NFL rosters. They're probably not materially better than what Vlad Ducasse was. They're just the shiny new thing, and that's
different.
Yeah, they're different new shiny things. That they're probably not materially better than him, but they know the system, and they're now a good fit, and they can help from a culture and a technique and scheme standpoint. But the two guys we just brought up, Feliciano and Waddle, plus a guy like Wyatt Teller, when those are your 7th, 8th, and 9th guys, that I actually think is a material change over last year, where those are
Yeah.
3 guys who probably are legitimately NFL caliber. If we cut them, someone else is going to pick them up. I'm confident saying that if we cut John Feliciano, Wyatt Teller, or Lader and Waddle, they would not remain unemployed. They would get
Or
picked up
Bodine. Bodine, I
immediately.
think, is
Oh,
another one.
Yeah, Russell Bodine. Those are all guys who are like 7 through 10 on our depth chart. We're going to cut 1 or 2 of those, and they're going to get picked up the next day.
Right.
We haven't had that issue in a decade, where we've had guys at the back end of our offensive line who can't play for us are going to get cut, not even backups, that are immediately getting scooped up by other teams. That is a nice bonus. And that doesn't mean that now we have the Cowboys line, or now we have some amazing offensive line. It just means it's a huge step up. And then we not only had a huge step up from terrible to average, but we also probably went 7, 8, 9 spots deep in average, where that is a nice luxury that I would say we might have an above average depth in there, that our 7th, 8th, and 9th guys might be better than 15 or 20 other teams.
Yeah, we have starters from last year that are pissing off their new coaches and barely able to hang on to starting jobs. Our boy Jordan Mills over there struggling to already keep his job in OTA. So, it's a huge step up. I'm really excited about this unit. And it's going to be a fun summer to watch how this shapes out. But I think ultimately, kind of just to circle back throughout the whole thing, my big wondering is mostly on Dion Dawkins. I really think he's super on the hot seat here this year to really prove that he's the guy for that position. And they've like I said, they put them all around him, and they've actually got guys that could come in and replace him if they need to. And I can't wait to watch how he responds to this, because he sees it. I'm sure that McDermott's been real clear about it when they in their sit downs in the office. Look, man, you really have to step it up. We have guys that are ready to take over this job for you. So this is it for you. And I can't wait to see how he responds to that this summer. And that's probably the thing out of this group that I'm watching the most, because if he really takes a step forward and establishes himself as a franchise left tackle, that's a huge solution for the Bills that they don't have to worry about going forward.
Well, and even from him personally, I would say maybe Shaq Lawson, but probably not even Shaq. Dion Dawkins has the most money on the line of any player on the Bills roster going into this year, because I don't see there's any realistic scenario where Shaq Lawson walks out with a $15 million a year contract. I don't see.
There's some dummy out here
his
in
style.
The world,
don't get me wrong. I just don't see any scenario where he stumbles into a D Ford or a Frank Clark season. Now, maybe, but I think that if things go really well, he gets himself $10 million. If it goes kind of ugly, he gets himself $4 or $5 million. But I think that's his window. Whereas Dion Dawkins, if you solidify this and have a great season, a franchise left tackle gets $12 to $15 million. And say, hell, Trent Brown just got $17 million. Right. Whereas you saw what Lader and Waddle just signed for. So that's the range that he's looking at. Is that I don't know that he could get the Trent Brown money, but with the way the scale is going, 2 more years from now, $15 million is absolutely in play for Dion Dawkins, because that's what a starting franchise left tackle gets. Or I'll take out the franchise word. That's what a starting left tackle gets nowadays, is $15 million. Or if it goes poorly and you get benched and go through the season, and at the end of the year you get cut and then become a free agent, you're probably looking at the 2-year, $5 million deal that Lader and Waddle got, and like $2.5 million a year as your contract. And having that kind of range of a $12 or $13 million gap between what you could make and what you could end up at, I think he's got pretty close to the biggest range of any player, any realistic range of any player on the roster this year. And I'm fine with that, because money's a perfectly reasonable motivator for anybody.
It's the best one in the whole world.
It's my favorite one.
Yeah.
But I realistically think that that's the kind of season they need. And with that there, you saw him take it seriously this offseason. I think the conversations you touched on are very real, that they've pulled him aside and said, listen, you have to do this right now. Yeah. I think he knows that. I think he's putting every ounce of himself into this season, and we're going to see what he's capable of. And then that's going to be the truth. I don't think that we're going to get that, oh man, I didn't know I needed to be ready. I think we're going to get everything he has.
Yeah.
And if it goes well, it's because he's ready to do it. And if he doesn't, we can, Brandon Bean and Sean McDermott can tell themselves honestly, we told him everything. He knew what he had to do. He came in, he gave it his all, and he just doesn't
He's
have
just
it.
not it.
We got
Yeah.
to move on. So I think that they're going to know and be able to make an informed decision either way.
Yeah. And I love that. Let's do it. Let's figure it out and move forward, because I've said it a number of times on this podcast. I'll say it till the season runs out. For me, it's not about 2019. I do think they'll be competitive, but it's all about 2020. And I want to figure that position out going into 2020. I want that position solidified for Josh Allen. If that's Deion Dawkins, fantastic. If it's not, let's figure it out and move on.
All right. Well, wrapping up for the O-line preview for today, we're going to wrap up with a couple more rapid fire Ask Cover One questions. So we had an awesome chat tonight. Cody, Maestro, Matt, everybody was in there, going crazy, giving us a ton of good feedback today. Please, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Instagram, whether you're on Twitter, use the hashtag Ask Cover One. Throw out some questions to us. We'll answer them live on the show. I try to answer some from the chat as the show's going. We'll put them out there. We can kind of prepare those. Eric actually did an entire video breakdown using the hashtag AskCover1. So please check that out. Be able to take a look at what we have going on. I'm going to throw a couple here that I'll answer and a couple that I'll kick to Aaron. This one came from Snake Pit 41. Love the name Snake Pit. That's fantastic. I'll answer the first one, then I'll go to you on the next one, Aaron.
Fine.
The first one, where did the Bills defense place in the NFL if Oliver has a defensive rookie of the year season? And what about it if he's a backup or mediocre? I'm going to say that I don't think Ed Oliver is the deciding factor of how good the defense is. I think he's a little more of a cherry on top. I think the defense is going to be very good regardless. I think he could be the difference between them being exceptional and them being really good, just because we did see some of the gaps in Kyle Williams' play. He was always the amazing locker room leader, but he lost a little bit off the fastball for his first step quickness. If we all of a sudden get that back and he's penetrating and wreaking havoc in the backfield, with the way our back seven is from a speed and coverage standpoint, that could really open things up to be able to let Jerry Hughes finish some of those sacks, a better season from Trent Murphy, some of those nice finishes from Zoe. He could be a really nice piece there to be able to do that. But I think he's more the cherry on top than maybe the defining reason of whether we have a great defense or not. Moving on to the next one. This one's for Aaron. Do you think Jerry Hughes will maintain a similar level of play over these next 2 years? He got extended in his contract. Do you think that's reasonable to assume?
Yes. I have no reason to think that he's going to drop in production. I don't care about sacks, whether or not he gets double-digit sacks. I think pressure-wise, he's going to continue on where he was. I have seen nothing on the film that shows that he's going to slow down. And in fact, I can see his sack total increasing with that, to the conversation before with Ed Oliver. And so I totally expect to have at least 2 more good years. I think you could milk a good 3 years out of Jerry Hughes as an NFL player still.
Absolutely agree. We'll do one more each here. Could Matt Milano and Trey Edmonds be a top 3 to 5 linebacker duo in the league next year? I don't think that's crazy. I think it's a little early. I think Matt Milano was arguably our best defensive player for a stretch last year before he got hurt, and was right there with the incredible talents like a Trey White and Jerry Hughes. So I think he's already shown the flashes of that if we get consistency. And Tremaine Edmonds, if you look at him in games 1 and 2 versus games 13 through 17, he was a totally different player. And if he shows that kind of capacity for improvement and development, that's not crazy that we could have a top 5 linebacker duo in the NFL. They are very much the modern scheme of what you want from a speed and versatility and sideline to sideline coverage that have a lot of potential.
That's the plan, how they drew it up, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, last one for you, Aaron, to close us out. Who do you think is the most likely to start at cornerback 2 this year with what we've heard out of camp?
Oh man, I think most likely from what we've heard, I think Levi Wallace is his job to lose, and I think it comes back to not so much as the veteran presence, but he was the guy at the end of the year that finished strong, and I think that again they're going to give him every opportunity to lose that job. And we've already seen with Gaines, the best availability is availability, and he's already been unavailable in OTA. So I think it is Levi Wallace's job to lose, and I think he does enough to hang on.
I don't disagree. I think the couple flashes you heard from Kevin Johnson maybe gives
Sure, he
a
can get
run
in
at
there.
it, but yeah, I agree. All right, let's wrap things up for the day. Where can the people find you? Anything that you have going on, and what should they be looking for when they follow you on the social medias?
Nowhere. Leave me alone. I'm sick of all you people. No, follow me at Aaron Quinn 716. You can hear me dogging on Chevettas and Loganberry and Sponge Candy like I did today. You can come tell me how dumb that is. I'm all here for that food stuff. But no, you can find me engaging with Bills fans and just having fun on Twitter. And then you can find me like we were talking before in the premium Slack channel. I'm in there all the time, so come find me.
Myself as well. You can find me on Twitter defending Chevettas because it's a perfectly reasonable way to eat chicken, you monster. You can find me at Greg Thompson, GregTompsett, having a good time with Bills fans. Working on maybe an interview for next week with some new exciting people in the Buffalo Bills media here, and looking to maybe set some of that up. We'll be looking forward to some more shows. Aaron and I will keep you company as we fight our way through this dead period before training camp, but looking forward to it. If you guys have a moment, please go out and give us a rating and a review, whether it's on the Android, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you're listening to us on YouTube. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a rating. It really means a lot. It helps us. Tell somebody else about the show, tweet about us, put it on Facebook, write a letter to your grandma, whatever you do. Let people know about what we have going on. But we'll be looking forward to having a lot more fun. We may or may not have a show next week. It might be an interview show. We'll see what's going on. As Aaron said, he's got some family in town, so we'll make it happen for
Thoughts
you
and
guys.
prayers for me, you guys. My mother's coming into town. Please pray for me.
Best of luck surviving that, Aaron. But had a great show tonight. Looking forward to it. Talking again soon. Thanks, everybody. We are out.